During her escape through the forest, Chloe realizes she is only a few meters away from the city and runs toward a tower to try to lose her pursuer. However, when she reaches the top of the building, the young woman ends up cornered, and Scarface pushes her off the roof. 2 days before her demise, Chloe was living like a normal teenager in San Francisco, about to turn 16. In an attempt to bring more excitement to her quiet life, Chloe convinces her 2 friends to crash a party for people over 21. In the first few minutes of the party, the young woman meets Xavier, who confesses to having used his older brother's ID to get past security. After dancing for a few hours, the couple decides to exchange phone numbers. As she leaves the club, she doesn't even notice that she is being watched by Scarface, who saw everything that just happened. The next morning, after class, Chloe rushes to prepare her birthday dinner, as it is her 16th birthday. While crossing the street, the young woman is almost hit by a guy on a skateboard, but manages to save herself by jumping onto the hood of a car parked nearby. When she realizes she has new abilities, Chloe happily runs to the restaurant, jumping from building to building until she reaches the top of a building. Later, when she meets her friend, the young woman tells her everything that happened that afternoon, but Amy believes that Chloe is just being weird as usual. During the conversation, Amy says that the night before, while her friend was on the dance floor with Xavier, she and Paul kissed and decided to start dating. Upon hearing this, Chloe is surprised, as she didn't know that her 2 best friends had feelings for each other. At that moment, the girl receives a call from her mother, who says she will be home in 5 minutes. After saying goodbye to Amy, she walks home alone, and halfway there, she ends up being attacked by a homeless man. When she realizes she is in danger, Chloe fights back and uses her nails to scratch the man's face. After neutralizing the threat, the young woman continues on her way and hugs her mother when she arrives home. After blowing out the candle and eating a piece of cake, Chloe asks her adoptive mother if she knows anything about her biological parents, who were Ukrainian. However, Meredith says she already knows everything she can about the girl's family of origin, so Chloe decides to go to her room, feeling frustrated that she doesn't have enough information about her origins. The next day, Amy goes to the store where Chloe works, and while looking at some clothes, she asks if her friend has contacted Xavier. At that moment, Amy takes her friend's phone to make a call, but the young man does not answer the phone. So Chloe is forced to leave a message that will never be heard, because at that very moment Xavier is lifeless. Later, when she is returning home after work, Chloe realizes she is being followed and tries to lose her stalker by entering the forest. However, when she realizes that Scarface is still behind her, the young woman starts running in search of a safe place, and then climbs to the top of the tower. Upon reaching the top, the young woman is pushed and falls headfirst to the ground, but manages to survive the fall and decides to continue her escape. While crossing the forest again, Chloe is found by 2 schoolmates and discovers that they also have special abilities. According to Alec, like him, Chloe belongs to an ancient and sacred race called Mai, which is descended from Bastet, an Egyptian goddess. At that moment, the young woman also discovers that she cannot relate to ordinary people, as a simple kiss can cause paralysis or even death for humans. Concerned about Xavier's health, Chloe decides to go to his house and discovers that he has been found lifeless. Terrified, the girl decides to go home, but Jasmine says she cannot leave Chloe until she finds out why the Order is after her. When they discover that the girl survived falling from the top of a building, Jasmine and Alec realize that she is the unifier predicted in the prophecy, as only the person destined to bring peace between the Maya and humans has 9 lives. Not knowing what to do with all this information, Chloe decides to go home, and hours later, she receives a visit from Amy, who says her boyfriend has disappeared. Suddenly, Chloe receives a call from Paul and discovers that he has been captured by the guy who tried to eliminate her earlier. She immediately goes to meet her friend, and ends up being caught in a trap set by Scarface. When the girl realizes she is in danger, her feline instincts kick in, and she begins a duel against her enemy. Scarface's goal is to eliminate the girl as many times as necessary until she no longer comes back to life, but his plans are interrupted by the arrival of Alec and Jasmine. While the young man helps Paul free himself, Jasmine attacks Scarface, and enlists Chloe's help to try to immobilize him. However, thanks to Scarface's vast experience in battle, he manages to dodge the blows, and Chloe is once again thrown through the window. This time, she manages to land on her feet, and while watching the girl, Scarface ends up being struck by Amy. At that moment, the man jumps out the window and decides to flee, realizing he is at a great disadvantage in that battle. The next morning, on her way to school, Chloe passes by the tower from which she was pushed and sees a bloodstain on the ground. At that moment, the girl remembers that she was eliminated a few hours ago and comes to the conclusion that she will have to be more careful from now on. After all, there is a criminal on the loose trying to eliminate her. After class, as usual, Chloe goes to the store where she works part-time and is visited by Brian, a young college student who is interested in getting to know her. During their conversation, he invites her to dinner, and as soon as her suitor leaves, Chloe shares the news with Lana, her manager. Shortly after setting up a date with Brian, the teenager receives a call from Xavier's cell phone and decides to answer it, but the call is disconnected immediately. That night, while eating pizza with her mother, Chloe decides to tell her what is happening and shows her a page from the newspaper with Xavier's photo. The girl explains that she went to a party 2 days ago and kissed that very young man. The next day, he was found lifeless, and Chloe can't help but feel guilty for what happened to him. When she realizes that her daughter is going through a difficult time, Meredith tries to comfort her and offers to accompany her to the funeral. While sitting at the back of the church, Chloe sees Xavier's older brother approaching, and later hears the young man arguing with his mother. Through her keen hearing, the young woman discovers that Gabriel's parents blame him for his brother's death. In an attempt to reassure the young man and show him that he was not to blame for what happened to Xavier, Chloe decides to go after him and discovers that Gabriel is involved with smugglers. Later, after work, Chloe meets Brian, as agreed. However, when he sees the girl going out on a date with a human, Alec decides to go after her to prevent anyone else from getting hurt after a kiss. During dinner, Brian tries to get closer to Chloe, but she pulls away, saying that this is not a good time, as she attended a funeral that morning. When he realizes that she is emotionally fragile, Brian decides to walk her home, and when he sees the two walking together down the street, Alec begins to feel jealous, as he has romantic feelings for Chloe. Still concerned that Gabriel feels guilty for his brother's death, Chloe decides to talk to him and discovers that Xavier went to San Francisco to help his brother stay away from drugs. Because of this, his parents blame him for what happened and believe that Gabriel supplied some substance that caused his brother's death. According to Gabriel, although he has not had contact with these things for a few weeks, he still has debts with his former suppliers. When she finds out that Gabriel intends to give some medicine from the hospital where he works as payment, Chloe decides to go after him to make sure nothing bad happens to him. After completing the transaction, Gabriel finds himself cornered, as Damon intends to eliminate him to prevent him from reporting them to the police. At that moment, Chloe appears to try to stop Gabriel from being shot and ends up being saved by Alec, who gets himself into trouble trying to protect her. Seeing that their friends are in danger, Amy and Paul decide to intervene and turn off the lights so that Chloe and Alec have an advantage in the fight. Thanks to their feline eyes that allow them to see in the dark, the two young people manage to defeat their opponents with ease. Then they hear a police car approaching, and Gabriel orders them to leave, as he intends to hand Damon and his accomplices over to the police. The next day, when she leaves the house, Chloe once again feels that she is being followed and decides to run through the streets in search of a safe place. Seeing a car passing in front of her, the girl uses her abilities to jump over the vehicle and continues her escape until she encounters Jasmine. At that moment, Chloe discovers that it was her classmate who was watching her, and Jasmine says that the girl will never be alone, as she needs to be protected at all costs. That afternoon, the Unifier is summoned to a meeting with Jasmine's mother, who is the leader of the Mai living in San Francisco. Upon meeting Valentina, Chloe takes the opportunity to clear up some doubts about her origins and asks why there is an organization that wants to eliminate her. In response, the woman explains that the order was founded by humans who wanted to destroy all members of the Mai race, believing them to be a threat to their species. For Chloe, having 9 lives can be considered both a blessing and a curse, as each of her lives will be more complicated than the last. Determined to live as normal a life as possible while she can, Chloe decides to return to the thrift store where she works and pretend that none of this has happened. However, as she is closing the store, she receives a call from her mother and discovers that Scarface has her cell phone. Concerned for the safety of the woman who raised her since childhood, Chloe decides to call her home landline, and to her relief, Meredith answers the call. When asked about the whereabouts of her cell phone, the woman says she lost it after bumping into a man on the street earlier. Concerned about the risk her mother is taking, the girl decides to talk to Valentina and asks for help in keeping Meredith safe. Valentina immediately gathers her team to search the area around Chloe's house and orders her daughter to keep an eye on the girl. However, while Jasmine is busy making something for them to eat, Chloe receives another call and discovers that her best friend is in danger. To prevent Scarface from hurting Amy, the girl decides to go find him and gets a ride from Brian to the meeting point. After breaking into the place, Chloe ends up falling into a trap, and when she wakes up, she realizes she is chained up. Scarface's plan is to throw the girl into a tank so she drowns, and every time she wakes up, she will be out of breath again. That way, in a few minutes, Chloe will lose her 8 remaining lives, and Scarface's job will be done. Luckily, as soon as Chloe is thrown into the water, Jasmine appears and attacks her enemy. During the battle, the young woman focuses on trying to free herself from the chains and ends up being saved by her friend. As they try to escape, both end up being cornered by Scarface, who pulls out a gun to shoot Chloe. However, before he has a chance to pull the trigger, Valentina appears and stabs her enemy in the back. After nearly losing another of her lives, Chloe gets into Brian's car and asks him to take her straight home, as she can't wait to give her mother a hug. The next day, while at work, Chloe discovers that in addition to having all her senses extremely sharpened, she is also able to read people's emotions, as she can detect a feeling of fear coming from her coworker. Later, while talking to Jasmine about what happened, Chloe answers the door to a young man who claims to have a delivery for Lana, and replies that she had to leave early that day. After giving him her friend's address so he can deliver the order, the the young woman senses something bad coming from Jesse and pushes him away. Terrified, the man gets up and leaves, while Jasmine tries to calm Chloe down, as even she cannot explain the reason for the attack. Later, while talking to Valentina about what happened, Chloe discovers that all unifiers are empaths, which allows them to feel human emotions. Knowing this, the next day, Chloe decides to investigate why Lana is feeling so afraid, and discovers that the supposed delivery man is actually her coworker's ex-boyfriend. Thanks to Chloe, Jesse now knows Lana's address and went there to try to convince her to get back together with him. When she discovers that she has turned her friend's fear into reality, Chloe feels guilty and offers to help her fix things, but ends up getting fired. The next day, when she returns to the store to try to get her job back, Chloe finds the thrift store completely destroyed and realizes that Lana does not intend to tell the police that it was her ex-boyfriend who destroyed the establishment. Concerned for the woman's safety, Chloe decides to go to her apartment and discovers that Lana is being attacked by her ex-boyfriend. In an attempt to prevent something worse from happening, the young woman breaks into the apartment and ends up becoming Jess's new target. After dodging a few blows, Chloe ends up cornered, and when she sees her ex-boyfriend going after the young woman with a knife, Lana knocks him down with a blow to the head. After risking her own life to save Lana, Chloe gets her job back. That night, when she goes out to practice her skills with Alec and Jasmine, the young woman feels more confident than ever, and for the first time, she manages to jump from one building to another without any difficulty. The following week, Chloe receives a visit from two Brazilian girls at her store and discovers that they are also from the ancient Mai race. After introducing themselves, Lila and Nikki try to get closer to the girl to find out if the rumors about her are true, but are disappointed to discover that Chloe is extremely attached to humans. At that moment, they begin to wonder if she is, in fact, the unifier, and come to the conclusion that there is only one way to find out the truth. Therefore, they decide to pursue Chloe with the goal of eliminating her. Upon arriving at an old building, Jasmine orders her friend to hide while she holds off the girls. However, while Nikki starts a duel with Jasmine, Lila manages to find Chloe and tries, for the last time, to convince her to go to Brazil. When she realizes that this strategy will not work, she attacks Chloe, who uses her feline instincts to dodge all attacks. Suddenly, Nikki appears holding a metal bar and tries to strike Chloe, but ends up hitting a power box and is eliminated by the electric shock. When she sees this, Lila decides to flee, but before leaving, she promises that she will take revenge for what happened to Nikki. With Lila gone, Chloe tries to get on with her life as usual, trusting that Valentina and her subordinates will take care of the whole situation. The next day, when she meets Brian, the girl is invited to an art exhibition organized by the young man's father, and asks her mother for help in choosing the ideal dress for the event. That night, while the young woman is having fun with her suitor, Amy is taken to watch an underground game and ends up getting into trouble when the sponsors discover that Jonah is using her glasses to cheat. When she realizes she is in trouble, the young woman calls Paul and tells him her location. Concerned for Amy's safety, the young man asks Chloe for help in rescuing her, and they both break into the building to rescue their friend. Terrified, Amy runs into Paul's arms, and they manage to escape, but Chloe ends up trapped inside the room with the criminals and has no choice but to face them alone. Even wearing a ball gown and high heels, the young woman manages to defeat her enemies, and thanks to the training that has helped her develop her skills, Chloe ends the battle without a scratch. Before leaving, Paul decides to teach Jonah a lesson and knocks him down with a punch for putting his girlfriend's life in danger. The next day, as usual, Chloe is working in the store when suddenly she sees a terrified man coming through the door. When she realizes that he is scared and afraid, the young woman approaches him to try to help him, but soon discovers that he is running away from Alec and Jasmine. In an attempt to understand what is happening, Chloe decides to go after them and discovers that Kai is not an ordinary guy, as he appeared to be. When she sees the fangs coming out of his mouth, the young woman is frightened and ends up being saved by Alec, but Kai manages to escape. According to Alec, the creature he and Jasmine were trying to capture is a jackal, descendant of Anubis, who is the ancient god of the unliving. That night, on her way home, Chloe realizes she is being followed and sets up an ambush to capture her pursuer. After attacking him, the young woman discovers that he is the jackal her friends were hunting, and Kai asks for her help to return home before he ends up being eliminated. Upon hearing this, Chloe decides to take him home, and enlists the help of Alec and Jasmine to get him back home safely. When she realizes that the unifier is not open to negotiations, Valentina pretends to agree, but the truth is that she plans to find out the location of the jackals so she can exterminate them all at once. So, the next morning, Kai guides Chloe and her friends to the pier, and halfway there, Alec gives up on sending a message to Valentina, as he intends to fulfill the promise he made to Chloe. Upon arriving at the jackal's supposed hideout, Kai claims that the place has been invaded by the Mai, and lures Chloe inside. When she hears Amy and Paul's screams, the young woman realizes she has been lured into a trap, and Kai sadly states that he was forced to lure her there. With Jasmine's help, Chloe attacks the jackals who are trying to eliminate her friends and orders them to flee. During the battle, the girl realizes that these guys are more skilled than she could have imagined, and ends up being captured by two of them. At that moment, Alec appears and tries to save Chloe, but ends up taking several hits. Even after taking several punches, the young man does not give up on saving his friend and ends up being thrown against the wall. In an attempt to save the young man, Chloe does her best to attract Kevin's attention, and when she is about to be eliminated, Kai appears. Seeing his father holding the girl, he tries to convince him to spare Chloe, as she is not like the rest of his people. When she realizes that Kevin has no intention of letting her go, the young woman decides to fight back, and with Kai's help, she manages to knock him down. However, when she is about to eliminate her enemy, she decides to put away her claws, thus proving to him that she is not his enemy. Chloe then leaves with her friends and thanks Alec for risking his life to save her. That night, while outside, Chloe hears the screams of a woman being mugged a few blocks away. When she approaches to try to help her, the young woman discovers that she was carrying several pieces of jewelry in her purse and realizes that the alleged thief is, in fact, her partner in crime. After hitting Chloe, the pair manages to escape, and the young woman ends up being caught by the police. The next day, she goes to the police station to give a description of the criminals and discovers that the detective is working with them. In an attempt to prevent the girl from participating in the investigation, the trio breaks into her house during the night. When she realizes that two armed men are approaching her room, Chloe manages to hide in time, hiding in the closet with her mother. At that moment, the girl's cell phone starts ringing, and her location is revealed. However, before one of the criminals can find her, Alec appears. After knocking down the intruders, the young man opens the door and informs them that he has already called the police to deal with these criminals. A few days later, after recovering from the shock of the invasion, Meredith decides to invite the man she is dating to dinner at her house and informs her that he will also bring his daughter. After dinner, Chloe tries to get closer to the girl and discovers that Vanessa is in love with a guy named Cody. The next day, the young woman receives the news that Frank's daughter has disappeared, and decides to help look for her, as she believes she has gone to meet the young man she was chatting with on the internet. When she finds Chloe, Vanessa tells her that she is leaving that night on a cruise with Cody, and runs away when she realizes that her father is nearby. At dusk, the young woman prepares to board, and when she is about to enter the ship, she discovers that Cody has tricked her in order to capture her. Luckily, Chloe and her friends manage to find out where Vanessa is before the ship leaves, and they go to the port to look for her. With Alec's help, the young woman attacks the smugglers, and together the pair manage to defeat them all. After taking out the criminals, Chloe and Alec lock them in the cell where Vanessa and several other victims were being held. Since then, the two young people have started a romance, and seeing couples forming around her, Jasmine also decides to open herself up to starting a relationship. After a few days of dating Zane, the young woman decides to introduce him to her friends, and everyone approves of the young man. What no one realizes is that he is a member of the Order, and he approached Jasmine only to find a way to destroy Valentina. One night, after standing Jasmine up on a date, Zane decides to ring her doorbell and is greeted by her mother. During the conversation, Valentina offers her future son-in-law a cup of tea, but when she turns her back to prepare the drink, she is hit by a tranquilizer dart. According to Zane, that dart was dipped in a poison that will eliminate her slowly, because Valentina needs to live long enough to see her daughter lose her life. Minutes later, when she arrives home, Jasmine sees her mother sitting in a chair with her back to the door and immediately realizes that something is wrong with her. At that moment, the young woman senses the presence of an intruder and manages to dodge the dart thrown by Zane. When she realizes that he is trying to hurt her, Jasmine decides to fight back, but ends up being hit by a knife and falls to the floor after taking a final blow. Meanwhile, that night, Chloe is lured into a trap and breaks into a closed building in hopes of finding her father, who disappeared several years ago. However, upon entering the premises, the young woman ends up surrounded by 3 members of the Order and must use her powers to defeat them alone. After putting into practice the moves she learned from Alec and Jasmine, the girl takes out the 2 men trying to capture her, and then goes after her last opponent. With a series of punches, Chloe manages to knock the man down, then kicks him to finish him off. However, just when she thinks she has won the battle, she comes face to face with Simone, one of the main leaders of the organization, whose goal is to wipe the Mai from the face of the earth. Upon seeing her target, the woman draws a gun and fires several shots at Chloe, promising that she will find her again in her next life. After hearing the shots, Brian, who was waiting outside, runs to check if Chloe has been hit and is relieved to see that she is still alive. At that moment, the two end up kissing, and the young woman panics, believing that the young man will suffer the same fate as Xavier. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe.